Okay.
No, I can't say that one. That's rude. Someone wants to know that was the story.
Huh?
Someone wants to know.
Thanks for coughing in the mic.
That's right. You did it on purpose. You guys will wake up.
It's real, so the people at home can feel the rawness. How did that wing
Get us
taste?
ready for Ramadan, innit? Tarawih.
How did that wing taste?
Very nice, bro.
Yeah, very nice. It's quite well known.
Is it Spice Hut? From Spice
They
Hut?
do no HFC. They do 25 wings.
Oh,
for £5.
HFC, yeah.
Did you guys see the advert? The KFC one?
No.
We had all AFC,
Oh
BFC,
yeah.
CFC.
We're flattered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite
that
smart,
was,
innit? Like
that
it.
was good. But it is the secret blend of the Colonel's 11 herbs and spices that does it.
Colonel Sunda.
Yeah,
Colonel Sunda. I'd be
Amazing.
Well.
I can hear. Can you hear that?
I always talk about PFC in my presentations anyway.
Have you?
What's that?
PFC, talk about PFC. Prefrontal cortex. But I have a picture of the shop.
Oh
And
yes.
and people were worried.
Chips, Salman.
And he's gonna come to my
He's
next,
all about
he's
the
gonna come to my next presentation,
Yeah.
isn't he? Why do you tell me you talk about chicken?
Easy.
I heard on the word on the street that Yusuf's got all the tips to deal with chicks.
Is that right?
So,
Me? No.
Maybe that's
That's false. It's slander, man. Slander.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a KFC man myself.
Because I don't like chicken. Prefer lamb myself.
Really?
Yeah. Or cows. Beef.
Okay.
Don't go India anytime soon, bro.
Yeah, you might get,
I was there. I was there. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
dangerous,
it.
bro.
When
Yeah.
was the last time you were in India?
It was about 2013. Yeah.
We're at Gujarat.
That was before
Yeah.
Modi, right?
Before Imodium, yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of
He's a bit
right-wing
constipated,
nationalist. Yeah, you need some of that.
Yeah.
No. How was it?
Yeah, it was okay. It was actually, we took my dad, went to Bombay, and I don't call it Bombay and
Mumbai.
Gujarat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your family's still
You've
in
been to
Gujarat?
Delhi.
Sorry?
Is your family still in Gujarat?
Yeah, still in Gujarat. Yeah.
How far is Delhi from that?
Delhi's the other side, man. It's far
Oh.
away.
You know, one day when I was in uni, I was walking across Hyde Park.
Mm.
Our flat was on one side and our university was the other side. And I entered the park
Mm.
and I just some really kind of stereotypically kind of old school white person
Yeah.
with a massive moustache. And he
Yeah.
was like,
Like
had
Colonel
some
Sanders.
headphones on,
Oh.
and he was saying something, and I was like, pardon? He was like, yalla yalla something in Arabic. I was like, sorry. He's like, Urdu boltai. I was like, yeah, Urdu boltai. He's like, the language of old Delhi. From that point on, I was like, this is going to be a sick conversation, man. But, the walk that normally took 20 minutes took like an hour, man. He was just like he came from a time warp or something, man. Run a quantum leap or something. He just...
Do you still find any of those characters in India? From British Raj?
I think only in old novels. I think not.
When
in
you were going into Gujarat, was there a sign saying only 2 school children at a time?
on every corner, bro. Every corner.
I'm just checking, bro. Just checking what the visa process is. Entry standards.
Yeah.
No. Good. Right, what's the topic of conversation for today?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the podcast Islam 21C Unscripted.
Clearly unscripted.
Unscripted, and we're thinking of it's a bit raw as well. So yeah. Or did you ask me to raw, as in ROAR?
He said raw.
Raw.
Yeah, raw. As
Islam
in-
21C. Welcome. /unscripted. We have with us in the studio, alongside my glorious co-host, Umer Suleman. Pan to Umer.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. This is Islam 21C's podcast, Unscripted, which means we haven't done any preparation. Standard. Now, jokes. So this is one of your hosts, your co-host, Umer Suleman, and I will introduce our guest very shortly after we have an introduction from the original host, Dr. Salman. But we're going to be discussing different topics today. But one bit of good news, potentially for the Ummah, or for Pakistan at least, is that they have potentially found some gas in Pakistan. Now, when you hear the words
Make it on.
Pakistan and gas,
Make it
you
on
don't think
punchline here.
of any sort of fuel. So what will this mean for the people of Pakistan? And what will it mean for the inhabitants of the countries that surround it? And what will it mean in the everyday lives of Pakistanis in Pakistan? Suleman.
That's a very good question. Assalamu alaikum. Gas is valuable.
Guessing it.
Yeah, I'm just guessing right
Stop
now.
gassing, yeah.
Yeah. As you know, my degree was in biochemistry, and I was later in the chemistry department, so I know all about gas. A lot of things about gas.
You're describing the station?
It's one of the three, states:
Yeah.
solid, liquid, and gas.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're doing an experiment, you're thinking you might get a gas.
Yusuf is an expert
You
in
think you
two
might
of
get a
those
gas,
states. He's going to
yeah.
be talking about them.
Sometimes you're an experiment. You think you're going to get some gas, but you end up getting a solid instead.
Yeah. Can't be that.
Yeah. Or even solid.
Sometimes it's the other way around. People like to boast, innit? And they're all gas and no solid.
That's true.
Then try and blag it, innit?
Yeah.
Can't be having that. All gas and no solid.
Yeah. Some
So-
things they just skip the whole gas, the whole liquid phase. So they're either gas or solid, like carbon dioxide. Okay, Yusuf, assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
This is Yusuf Patel. He's the resident sex education guru, also known as a sex expert.
Sexpert.
Expert,
Inshallah.
yeah. SRE. He's from SRE Islamic. Yusuf, you've been a busy bunny recently.
Very
all
interesting
over the-
choice of words there, Salman.
Yeah, I'm beginning to regret coming on here now, you know?
You wore a blazer and everything.
The fact that if
Very
I had
highbrow here.
if I had the
Very bright
reputation,
highbrow
I'd say
here, Yusuf.
my reputation's been besmirched, but as I don't have a reputation, doesn't matter.
Looks up besmirched in the
Yeah.
dictionary. Oh,
So what was your question? Sorry.
how are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. I'm
كيف
good.
حالك?
Alhamdulillah. Are you asking the easier questions first
Yeah.
before you throw the curveball?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think the future of sex education is in the UK?
It's a booming industry.
How was your trip here?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Okay.
On that came with a tube.
I see you've made an effort.
This was
also
not
with
for
the
this
appearance.
podcast. I was at
Okay.
work today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It just so happened that I wore this here.
Ouch. I made an effort. I had a haircut today in preparation.
I didn't notice.
Beard
Sorry.
cut as well.
Nice.
Did you notice,
Because,
Umer?
And I put
can't
perfume
say I
on
did.
as well. Can you
Is
see
it,
that?
is it chicken flavored?
No,
Chicken
that was
spelling.
that's the plate
Gravy.
of chicken
Gravy
wings over
oud.
there.
Gravy oud. So,
Actually,
Yusuf,
the,
how long you been dealing in this area for?
Since October 2008.
And
actually, Yusuf, I have to warn you that that question could have been taken very differently. So just to the
Okay.
for the avoidance.
I'm
of
Sharif,
any
so
doubt,
I don't know these things. I'm just.
just for the avoidance, for the record, any authorities listening, Yusuf does not deal in this area.
Okay.
This is areas strictly covered by Abdul Samad, Abdul Razak. He's the main dealer in this area. Carry on.
Yeah, so basically October 2008, when the then government wanted to make this subject statutory in schools, and so we started to speak about this subject.
But what is it that made you specifically want to get up and talk about? I mean, of all the different topics to talk
Well,
about.
Yeah,
he
you know-
doesn't want to.
Really, because I think there's two things. One is I remember going to school, and this is like a couple of hundred years ago, yeah, in the 18th century. I remember going to school, and going through the lessons, because I remember my father getting a letter and saying, "Look, we're going to teach children about education." And my father was quite trusting, as all of us are quite trusting about teachers. And so I remember I went through a class and it was really uncomfortable. It was done by the PE teacher, a real Jack the Lad, and I felt really uncomfortable. So did most of the other Muslims who were in that room.
Bro,
But
please
then-
tell me he wasn't in his gym kit.
I've blocked it out of my
Alright,
memory.
lads.
I've had years of counselling ever since, so I've blocked that out of my memory. But then, come 2008, I was
teach you the
my
finest tricks in the game.
because literally the lesson was the start lesson was think of all the rudest words and terms that you can think of.
I remember that.
Yeah, were you in the class as well?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
They
you.
did that in my
Oh, sorry.
school as well.
Oh, sorry.
Obviously, many years later, but
A couple of years later, yeah.
yeah, it was. She was like the science teacher. She was like writing out all of the.
No,
funny
at least
words for
our
different
PE teacher
things.
was a male.
Yeah,
That was one.
but
And it
then
was all
she was
boys.
but then the point was like, okay, here's all the words, you got them out of your system, now you can't use these ever, or you get a detention or something.
No, I think the teacher said you can use
That's a real
them.
buzzkill,
You can
man.
use them. I don't think that
That's
that.
where I learned some of my most, creative euphemisms
Okay.
for parts of the body.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a shame because we had this piano playing expert, and after that, we can never call him a piano playing expert anymore.
Okay. And then
You mean a pianoer?
Yeah, something like that, bruv. Something like that.
Keyboardist.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the one.
okay,
Yeah.
right. So then I think when it was 2008, my son was my youngest son was back then just about to start school, and I think he enrolled at the local state school. And after I'd done a lot of research in this area and started to interact with parents and schools, I decided I couldn't in all conscience send my child to a state school. I think so. It was really a personal issue at the time of thinking that I can't subject my child to this, and I need to actually start also working to stop other children from going through these classes.
Would you make the same decision again?
I definitely would. Yeah.
Wow, your son was. So you have a teenager, yeah?
Yeah. He's
Wow.
13 now.
What's that like?
Alhamdulillah, he's a good kid, mashallah.
Mashallah.
And
I'm kind of dreading teenagers. I've got 3 boys,
yeah,
and the oldest is 9
yeah.
tomorrow, inshallah.
Oh, mashallah.
So they're still really
Excuse
kind
for
of
cake.
yeah.
I think
easy
really-
to kind of
I think I've found, and obviously, I'm not saying whenever I give advice to say this is what you should do, not necessarily what I've done. Yeah. So just to say that it's really building relationship with your children is very, very important, and really establishing a relationship early on pays off in the later years.
Did you get rid of all your pop-up books
Pop-up books? No. Why would I get rid of pop-up books?
for education and that? And if you're no longer gonna like use those to teach him about sex education,
Actually, I've got a stash of all these bad resources, and I've got to like put them somewhere away from the other children that
Aye,
can't
aye.
get it.
all right, okay, kids, yeah.
bad
Yes.
resources.
I'm talking about
Bad
If anyone's got an excuse, that is the longest cover-up ever, Yusuf. Now I'm in the SRE because you got caught with something. Yeah, look, I'm going to be educating everyone, honestly.
Now, Umer's going to pay me a visit next week.
I need this
I've
for
come to see your
research.
I've come to see your resources.
Yeah.
I said, bro, what are you doing here?
Oh,
Yeah.
mate. Astaghfirullah. Got nabbed one time, Yusuf.
We are so immature. Right. So what do you mean by on a serious note, what do you mean by inappropriate? Is that the kind of
So
the books that you use to scare parents when you do
no, basically
like that my
these.
cha-cha is gay and all that kind
No,
of stuff?
that's not in this
My
country.
two-
But basically, just books about basically exposing children to sexualized messages, whether it be heterosexual messages or other types of messages. And just really, it's children's books that expose children to an understanding about sexual relationships when they're like 5 or 6 years old, when they should really not be thinking about that. And so
What
those
age
type of
should
things.
they? Do you think they should not teach them at all, or do you just think that they shouldn't teach them at that age?
I think there's 2 things. Firstly, age is one issue, but I think also is the way they teach about it, the way they talk about it. Talk about it from a perspective that really doesn't give children a moral criteria as to how to navigate this area. So they just say to children, these are all the facts, now you decide on yourself, because society is not based on any clear moral foundations.
It's very
So-
also pragmatic as well. They're trying to reduce teenage pregnancies, which is obviously kind of maybe a good thing to reduce.
Yeah.
But the way they're doing it is like, here's how you do it safely.
Yeah. But actually, the funny thing is, the strange thing is that it was back maybe about 10 years ago, up to about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that they were talking about the need to reduce teenage pregnancies. But now, nobody talks about teenage pregnancies anymore. They talk about other things. They talk about the need to prepare children for life in modern Britain. They talk about the need to establish ideas of consent amongst children. They talk about the impact of pornography amongst children. They talk about all these other reasons, which shows that actually over the years they've changed their reasons
and
for
those
why.
good things though.
Well, in terms of like one of the guidance documents that Brooke produced, one organization Brooke produced, it said to children that when you talk it says to teachers that when you talk to children about pornography, you shouldn't automatically say that pornography is a bad
I
thing.
remember that.
You should say that there's good things about pornography
What do
and
you mean
there's
you
bad
remember
things
that?
about pornography.
One second. What do you mean
No,
you
no,
remember
I
that?
remember
Salman?
he wrote that for an article. In
Oh, right, okay.
Islam20nc.com.
Right, quick backtrack there, yeah.
So
Yeah, but it's
yeah.
generally what you're saying. It seems to be as if all the narrative is devoid of haya. right? They
Absolutely.
just don't. It just doesn't come across in anything that they
Well,
kind of spread.
Well, you think about it.
Modesty,
It's just
shame, bashfulness.
it's just a
and
reflection
not-
of it's a reflection of societal values, isn't it? Like the idea of haya in society is seen as very prudish now, isn't it? Seen as very Victorian. That this why do you want to inflict Victorian values on modern society? Society has moved on. Why should you tell children that they should be ashamed of their naked bodies? You should allow children to
Do
explore
you
that.
think it's the same for the upper class? So amongst the elite, do you think they still have they hold those points and those values that you're saying, that they've got rid of it, or do they have this thing about how an honourable person, how a noble person, how somebody of standing should behave?
I think in terms of these sort of values were existent amongst people in general in their private lives, across class boundaries. But and now it's society accepted norms that have taken over people's understanding of these areas. So I think.
But amongst a certain type or certain class of person, is it still accepted among, say, the elite, or
I think it really depends
privileged?
on if they've got.
They tend to be more right wing, though, isn't it?
But right wing, as well as they believe in certain Judeo-Christian values. Yeah, if they still believe in that, because otherwise, what's the reason why you would like, for example, in the past there would be like a Tory Labour divide on family values.
Yeah.
The Labour would not really be as espousing family values, and the Conservatives would be the ones who espouse family values. But now, that's completely blown apart. There's actually a wide consensus amongst MPs in the Conservative Party that these sort of values, they need to be rethought, and people need to move on. So
is it the liberal movement that's kind of driven the liberal agenda? Because as a party, they're not.
But I mean, within the Tories, there are the kind of,
there are some. So I think
Rees-Mogg
most of those types of Tories have some religious backbone. Yeah, because otherwise, like there's a hadith of the Prophet where he said that if you have no shame, then do as you wish, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got nothing stopping you from doing something which is shameful, which is against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained, then you would do anything and everything.
But I mean, no, I agree completely. But if you look at the Tories, generally, whatever they've done, right, it was in amongst themselves, in the privacy of their own members' clubs, etc. They haven't really pushed for it to be open in society in the same way other parties have.
But they
the
have,
liberal movement.
But the Conservative Party really, they a few years ago, especially under Cameron, they really believed that one of the reasons why the Tories had been out of power for so long is because they were seen as the nasty party. So the Tories tried to rebrand themselves and try to be more fluffy, more liberal, more accepting of different people, diversity.
Quite a kind of backlash as well. You see that in the Brexit pro-Brexit kind of.
Well, you clearly see that there's a huge disconnect between Tory MPs and the Tory grassroots. Tory grassroots still believe in these fundamental family values, but then
that's why people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who despite his Snoop Moggy Mogg, despite the cool way in which he talks, and it looks, sounds like he should wear a monocle or something. Yeah, he's quite right wing and traditional.
But he's also,
and that kind of stuff.
even that whatever when people satirize him and lampoon him, actually he's quite principled in what he believes. Yeah. And he's not somebody who will just say something to please people.
At least you know where he stands, I guess.
Yeah, and there's other people like Edward Lee, for example. When this legislation was going through Parliament, the Children and Social Work Act 2017, to make these subjects statutory in schools, he said very clearly. Edward Lee said that this is the state takeover of parenting, which is actually a good way of summing up what the government did. It took over the right of parents to raise their children, and they defined it themselves.
In the developed world,
yes,
which country do you think has got it right in terms of the whole SRE piece?
I don't think anybody's got it right, because the way liberal values are affecting societies. America, Canada, all of the Western world are being affected by these same values, really, and people are moving further
Western
and further away.
Attitudes and norms and that
absolutely.
kind of stuff.
I think in terms of
have you seen the video of the Ugandan president?
Yes,
Prime
yes, I
Minister?
did. Yeah.
That was weird.
No, what did he say?
He was like really, I suppose, what you describe as homophobic, right? He was. Some woman was like, "What do you think of homosexuals?" He's like, "It's disgusting. We don't want that in Uganda. It's you Western kind of. You can keep it to yours. Don't try and impose it on." the problem with that hymn though,
Yeah.
right, is, and a lot of Muslim kind of responses as well, I've spoken to you in the past about this, is the fact that they accept a lot of the discourse and kind of narratives from Western campaigners and so forth about LGBT and you even use the word liberal and that kind of stuff. And without challenging some of those presumptions, they kind of fit into it and try and argue against it. And in doing so, they kind of fit into the kind of a predetermined mold, a character, like a bogeyman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the homophobe, you're the intolerant person.
Yeah.
Because they haven't, because this is what a lot of kind of critical theorists say, is that, you know, these things are created by discourse. Things like sexuality, things like even gender, a lot of people say that, you know, and when you fail to challenge the discourse and you just jump into it and start, you know, talking, you just become a character in someone else's story. That's why we're saying in the Islam Trinity, we try and make our own, be the authors of our own story rather than being characters in someone else's.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I ask you, you know, I asked this question the other day, you know, have you stopped selling drugs yet?
I never saw them in the first place.
So you challenge the presumption of the discourse.
That's right.
Or this mini kind of rules of the game, that I created. Because the way I phrased it, I kind of tried to force one of two predetermined answers. Likewise, if someone said, like a young lady, she said to her sister, we were doing like a youth Q&A. We said all the parents leave so the kids can ask any questions they want. She said, what's wrong with being gay or lesbian?
Right.
And the way, like, normally people, and the brother with me, he started answering it, I felt it kind of did more harm than good. Because the normal way, the kind of, you hear Muslims talk about it's unnatural or, you know, it's haram or that kind of stuff. We already, because we don't challenge the underlying presumptions of the question, like gayness is an issue of being, like it's something universal, like the laws of gravity, like it's something not based on people's culture and so forth.
Applicable wider than this particular discussion about how to approach topics, because most people will immediately answer and they get so focused on answering the question at hand that they allow themselves to be, you know, boxed in. The framework is set for them, and we shouldn't allow anyone to set our framework. Our framework is.
That's why the person who creates the discourse has so much power. And that's where a lot of the kind of critical theory comes in terms of some people, some research, you know, thinkers. Basically, they said, look how much power is in the hand of the person who sets the agenda, who sets the meanings of words, who sets the kind of parameters of a discussion. You could, you know, people unfortunately aren't critical enough normally to see past the kind of juvenile sound bites of, you know, what's wrong with, you know, being X, Y, Z, or, you know.
I think, I mean, I agree
things about
definitely to
love
some
and that kind of
extent. I
stuff.
agree definitely to some extent, but also you got to appreciate someone. I guess we're now in a time that's probably unprecedented as the second generation, where people are a lot more out about how they are. That I guess when we were growing up, knowing people from an LGBT background was unheard of. But now it's so prevalent in society that your colleagues, your working, your neighbors, etc., and you're interacting with them on a different level. It's almost a personal relationship like that. You know, so now applying something which is quite, you know, abstract, it's sometimes easier to understand how those rules apply, to now suddenly apply them and you're thinking about it and you thought, wait, but I know so and so. You know.
That's why we need.
I know, Ramit.
We need our we need our own kind of little sound bites and different things for different places. And
I think we need to know how to approach the topic. To be honest, I think.
How would you answer that question? A young girl comes up to you or a boy, says, "What's wrong with being gay?"
Well, I think in terms of one thing that's important to note here is that, you know, we are obsessed with one type of relationship, you know, as a community. So when parents come to me and talk about what's happening in school, say, what question should I ask about LGBT? And one parent, last week I was in the masjid and I was giving a presentation, and one parent blatantly said, "Look, I don't care about any of these other sexual matters. I don't mind if my children learn all of these issues. Yeah, but all I
Yeah.
care about is the LGBT issues."
And a lot of parents feel that way.
And that is a problem.
LGBT and transgender things.
And that's a problem, because that fundamentally means that our agenda about these issues is being shifted. So that means
Yeah.
our tolerance towards the incorrect propagation and sexualization of children from a heterosexual perspective is like, if boyfriend and girlfriend is being promoted in schools, our tolerance level for that is actually more accepted, like more acceptable, because that's more closer to what we believe in
And that
than
actually
everything
feeds
else.
the problem.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, the youngsters, I mean, when you look at some of the research that's done, they become almost immune to normal pornography.
Yeah.
That it has to become more and more weird
Yeah.
and out there, and which is then making them experiment and go down the other way. So a lot of parents, if they think, I can't imagine that any sound believing parent would want to do that to their children, that they promote those type of relationships.
Yeah.
That they're pushing the bar further and further. It's like someone who starts saying, "Well, we're right if they only use these drugs."
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of one brother. He was from Bradford. He said he was talking to his mate, another Muslim guy in their 40s or something. And he was with his friend, and his son rang. The friend's son rang, and he goes, "Oh, Dad, I'm just with Jenny. I'll be back a bit late, bro." It's with Bradford, so I'm doing the accent. And he's like, "Yeah, no problem. Just come back whenever, yeah." And then he hung up the phone, and my friend was like, "Who the hell is Jenny?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Bro, I'm just glad it's a girl, innit, bro?"
Oh. But that's
And
a problem,
that's a
because
lot of
we
people,
fundamentally, because that thing is there's two things here. Fundamentally, we believe that if any sexual relationship outside of marriage between a man and a woman is completely unacceptable. But also the point is that, you know, this whole issue has been diverted to such an extent that when parents go to schools and ask questions, they only ask, "What LGBT stuff are you doing?" Not, "What is your whole sexual relationship education, relationship sex education curriculum? What do you teach and what resources do you use?"
Yeah, I think it's got to come back to the issue of haya, man. Really, we generally as a society we've lost that, and we don't really know how to inculcate it. And all of these things, as with most issues, are interconnected. So the rise of social media, the access people now have to posting about themselves,
living their life, basically, there's no privacy anymore.
There isn't. So you're not shy. You know, and each time you want to push it a little bit further, so you get more of a buzz or more something to do, more of a like. You can't do that if you're a shy person. Or the other thing is you start creating two personas.
Yes.
You know, you become almost bipolar like that. You have one for online and one for how you are in reality.
But there's still, that's very important, but we still need to address the issue that parents have. Right?
Yeah, I know, but also we need to say to parents that, look, your issues need to be wider than that. That encompasses all those issues, but that doesn't. You shouldn't just be so focused on one area.
But when they do ask you about that area, what do you say?
Ask about which area, sorry.
They say, if a young person comes up and says, "What's wrong with being gay?"
Firstly, I would say, you know, the issue is, you know, especially because in teenage years are, you know, a difficult time. Teenage years, there's hormones coursing through the bodies. And sometimes boys and boys, especially girls and girls, can have very intense relationships. Now, somebody from the outside is saying that if you love a girl or if you love a boy of the same gender, then that means you must be gay. Then that makes them think, okay, that means that if I love my friend who's also gay, if Aisha loves Jenny, who's also in her class, and she likes spending time with her, then she then almost thinks that as though that's relationship, that platonic relationship, is almost sexual. And we say, no, that's not. Don't think that just because you like somebody of the same gender, then that you're considered to be of somebody who has a sexual attraction to the same person of the same who's male as you are or female as you are.
What does it mean to be male and female these days, anyway, man? Honestly, like seriously, like the markers and the sort of the characteristics of masculinity and femininity. I think, honestly, I don't know, man. It just seems to be lost.
They are, to a certain extent, yeah, they are. I think they are, definitely.
No, but even amongst the practicing community.
Yeah.
But
you know, ask what's a man, and you know, they'll come up with some madness, But I mean, what are the characteristics and the defining qualities of men today? when we talk about what rajula is, yeah,
Mm.
what
that's
is it?
masculinity, I would say
Agreed,
that.
but then these things are related because if you're blurring the lines with that, then it's acceptable to behave in a certain way, and then we know that if you behave in a certain way, it becomes who you are.
You know, Sohail, the teacher, right, or assistant head teacher, Ustad Abu Hanifa, he was doing, we were in a big discussion, Islam 20 discussion. He mentioned something really interesting because he has interaction with school kids and
Yeah.
different classes and that kind of stuff. He was saying, subhanAllah, when you have boys and girls free mixing, no, when you have them by themselves, like an all-girls school, all-boys school or class or whatever, you naturally see a variation, a range of different kind of attributes and characteristics in that within that group, right? So some boys would like kind of rugby, some will be a bit more away from the stereotypical kind of masculine, or maybe into poetry, drama, and that kind of stuff. But when you have, and likewise with women, right? We have a range. But when you have a free mixed school or a kind of group, he said, subhanallah, the variety tends to be squashed up around the stereotypes of what is feminine and what is masculine. So you get boys acting more macho and kind of
because they can see the opposites.
masculine, and you get girls who might be into karate or rugby or whatever. They'll start to be a bit more kind of stereotypically feminine, right? And the thing is, this is intimately connected with the other issues of LGBT and all that kind of stuff. Because when somebody is being told that they have an attraction for, you know, the same, or a man, for example, what they're actually being told, what they're actually saying is they're attracted to society's kind of stereotype of what masculinity is, right? Or whatever kind of attributes are associated with masculinity or femininity. And I mean, I was speaking to, been speaking to some sheikhs about this as well in terms of Islam and sexuality, right? Because the issue of sexuality and as a notion is many people, many theorists, many thinkers say this is a social construct. It's created by discourse. It's created by a culture around you. Just maybe to serve the cultural norms or politics or that kind of stuff
what do you
around
mean
you.
by that?
So, because a lot of Muslims, right, where we end up saying, okay, we believe in sexuality, we believe in homosexuality, we believe in heterosexuality, but homosexuality is haram, and heterosexuality is wajib, right? Instead, because the problem is homosexuality, heterosexuality even, these themselves are 18th century construct, 19th century constructs,
Right.
from the 1800s, right? Western European constructs.
Yep.
So I argue, and I was speaking to some sheikhs about this as well, that Islam doesn't have this belief in these categories of sexualities in the first place. We don't believe in homosexuality. We don't even believe in heterosexuality. Right? Because, I mean, look at some theorists, for example, they cite ancient Greece, for example, right? The whole kind of landscape of sexuality in ancient Greece was completely different to what we consider as, you know, here's a discrete category of heterosexual, here's a discrete category of homosexual.
Yeah.
Because sexuality for them was you're either a citizen of Athens, like a basically not white because whiteness didn't exist then, but like a male who's a citizen of Athens, or the lower classes, right? Either a slave, a woman, a boy, who you know, maybe a child of a citizen of Athens or whatever, that kind of stuff. But an adult male or citizen of Athens, he is allowed to, or it's normal for him to choose a sexual partner or a subject rather from any of those categories. That was the norm in ancient Athens, in ancient Greece at the time. Whether it's a boy, whether it's a slave male, whether it's slave female, whether it's a Greek female, right? Obviously, within them they had different hierarchies, but that was their notion of sexuality, to have a superior and a
dominant and
a superior dominant
yeah.
and a submissive kind of inferior kind of receiver of that person's sexuality, right?
Right.
And that was what that was their notion of
Mm.
sexuality.
Mm.
And various cultures and societies throughout history and around the world, they had different understandings of sexuality to serve their kind of political or
But some people can argue-
Jahili Arab? What about amongst
Yeah.
the Jahili
likewise
Arabs?
Jahiliya Arabs, right? They had their own
Mm.
civilization, and no doubt our ancestors from the Indian subcontinent would have had their notions and their norms and attitude towards sexuality and
No, but I mean,
But some
everyone-
people say,
So go on,
some
Yusuf.
people
The
say,
point- the
some
point
people
is-
say that look, what we're doing is that in any society, if there's certain structures or certain terms that are used to define a particular reality, then in order to address that reality, you've got to use the terms of that society.
Yeah, but the point of the critical theory in of itself, is that though that discourse is what in fact creates that reality, right? So it's the
But
fact
some
that
people
you
can
have,
say that's just an academic fluffiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And actually
however,
on a ground level, if you speak to anybody on the street, they would say, "What nonsense you talking about?"
yeah,
This is-
because it requires some critical thinking. That's why I say for the masses
Yeah.
or whatever, as the person in the street, you need to have that concise,
Mm.
soundbite.
Mm.
And for the politician, you need it. For the
Yeah.
sheikh, he needs or she needs their own.
Has
Right.
Iran got it
So-
right? Stop Salman going on his monologue, right?
Are you sure the right topic
Has
here, bro?
Iran got it right in terms of how they deal with it?
No,
Do you know what
because
Iran do?
What do Iran do?
Do you know Salman?
I think they regard someone as a homosexual and they put him in prison or whatever.
Nah,
They
they've
allow
got the
transgender.
highest percentage
Transgender.
of transgender
Yeah.
operations. So what they say is that this person is in the wrong body,
Mm.
and so the country, even the government, pays or subsidizes,
The sex change operation.
sex change jobs.
Mm.
So they say then they become female, then it's all kushti.
This is before the West. This is before
Yeah,
the
yeah,
West.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is a couple of decades ago. They started this in Iran.
Okay then.
I think Salman's perplexed now because he's
Yeah, don't get me started on
his
gender.
critical theory is
Right.
No.
That's what I'm saying. Is
Salman Barzadeh.
gender theory and queer theory,
Yeah.
right? Branches of critical theory today. The one of the central kind of dogmas of those kind of studies is that sexuality is a social construct. It's not. The human beings don't fit into discrete categories, right? And to me, this sounds like more akin to the Islamic position. That fair enough, you and your history, white European kind of culture and taste and attitude and discourse has created in the last 250 years these categories: homosexual, heterosexual, and bisexual, and so forth.
Trisexual.
pansexual.
Fair enough, that's
people
for you, but we don't
people
share
like
that.
Barton.
Yeah, so here's the question. Has Iran got it right? And look, let's look at the problem, right? And even in places like Pakistan, India, where you've got a massive hijrah community, right? And so I remember back in the days, to crack when brothers said, we're going to go make hijrah to Pakistan. And I had to think twice about it because the word hijrah I knew was from Urdu, not Arabic. Hijrah, basically, they're like eunuchs, isn't it? So has Iran got it right? Or is Iran completely wrong in the way they're dealing with it? Let's just say, because let's go through the different options that they're out there at the moment. And secondly, what can Islamic governments do now to deal with the communities that are like that? Yusuf?
I think I'm more interested in actually talking about what we do here, than what people do. Because basically, in terms of, I think the world, including Muslim countries and Muslim minds, have been colonized in different ways. They've been colonized physically in the past, and they've been colonized in terms of their thoughts, such that the influence of Western thoughts and notions and norms impact all of our societies. So it's not surprising. It's not unsurprising that what we consider the family structure is undermined.
I remember when I went to Morocco in the hotel, they had some free. They said there were free channels that are just blasting film after film from Hollywood, latest blockbuster films that weren't even out here. And I said to one of the sheikhs who's from there, who has a connection there, he was like, I said, there must be the young people here must have some kind of crisis of identity, and he was saying, And this is certainly one of the the kind of
Well,
soft power approach.
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
I mean, look, the West has
values
lost
and-
this discussion. They've lost ground on this discussion. It's not going to go back. But in the East, okay, I was actually today I was reading that movie about that Queen singer, Bohemian Rhapsody. So it's
Freddie
released-
Mercury.
Freddie Mercury, yeah. It was released in China, and they cut out all references to his homosexuality, like any reference to it, because they don't promote it in China. So my point here is
Must have been a short film then.
right? In the country, in Muslim countries, if they don't hold some sort of defense to this, then who else are we going to look to that actually are still holding on to these principles? The fact that I completely agree, we're dealing with our situation here, but still there needs to be some pushback or challenge, no?
There does have to. I was speaking to somebody in Pakistan, and he was saying that the similar approach to the way in which sex education has been promoted here. There are groups in Pakistan who are promoting it there to impact the education system.
Yeah.
And so I think there definitely has to be a pushback on these things. I think, and sometimes the overt reason why these campaigners say they want something is not necessarily why they want it. Yeah, and so they will say that, look, children are being abused. This is happening. We need to do something about it. And then, sometimes the argument sounds right. Yeah, okay, we do need to do something about it. But actually, if you look at their true intention, their true objectives, it's really about imposing foreign norms and values that are imported from the West upon the Muslim
I think
countries.
that needs to be part of our SRE kind of discourse as well. That there is an issue that children need to know, for example, what is appropriate and inappropriate.
Yeah.
Interaction, right? But the point is that our issue is that some people, campaigners, are using it to kind of push certain cultural norms and attitudes and fashion through the back door.
No, absolutely. I think we need to
Pun not intended.
definitely nail down that back door and ensure that these values don't penetrate. Because the reality is when I speak to parents and I say to them, look, if you think about all the things you think your children know about these areas, sexual matters, and you write them down on a paper, I can guarantee you they know much more than you think they do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we live in this sense of blissful ignorance that my child is so innocent, he's a child. Sometimes we think about our own children as still babies, but they know because they live in a society where the sexual messages impact them on so many different levels, on TV programs, advertising.
Have you
through their
ever
friends.
had a conversation with the people you disagree with on this topic in terms of they're saying we want to push these values and messages in SRE lessons, and you're saying no, we don't want to push these things?
Yeah, I've obviously sometimes locked horns on places that don't probably foster a platform for meaningful discussion, like for Twitter.
Yeah.
But I do plan to actually meet up with
'Cause
people
that's
who
very
disagree.
important, because if people
from a
actually
Muslim background?
genuinely any
I'm sorry, from Muslim background or non-Muslim background?
Probably anybody, probably non-Muslim people who believe in these
Have you
values.
spoken to any Muslims who have come from that background?
Yes, I have, yeah.
because
And
it's really important to get across this distinction between the actual harms that you're protecting children from and pushing these cultural norms,
Yeah.
Western cultural norms and attitudes and
Yeah.
tastes.
And
Because
yeah.
because then what the discussion turns into is, somebody pushing for the whole as it is now, you can tell them that it's you, in fact, who, for the sake of pushing these subjective cultural values on these, for example, Muslim parents or Christian parents or whatever,
Yeah.
you're willing to face a backlash that's going to get rid of the baby with the bathwater. So the kids won't even learn the stuff that,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
in terms of that will help them, that will keep them safe from abuse, just because you're adamant that you want to push certain,
It's not going to happen now. I mean,
19th
the
century
horse is
social
bolted, bro.
constructs about.
The horse is bolted. I don't think it's going to happen like that.
But I think, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, look, man, we need to empower our communities. We need to educate our parents. The masajid, they need to be welcoming and know how to deal with these situations. The reality is, look, guys, we've been joking about, etc. There are a lot of young Muslims who are going to be confused out there, who don't know what to do, they're unsure about their feelings, and all these things that you've been saying, Salman, spot on, right? Oh, society will tend to go a certain way, as you said, before, Yusuf, that look, they don't know how to, how to understand these feelings they have for someone else of the same gender. Now they need to be able to come to in a safe space and speak to someone about them. And if we're not creating those spaces for them, and they can't go through it in a structured way, maybe not to the level Salman's talking, bro, because you're going to lose them, yeah? No, but I'm just saying that, it needs to be made for them to understand what their own feelings are. You'll be surprised, subhanAllah. I mean, I know brothers who are practicing now, mashallah, and they had experiences like that. And the reason that they had those experiences is because when they were young, they were abused. How do you do it? And if they come and, bro, I know my discourse in the 90s, and the 2000s, what it was like about this sort of topic. We laugh, we push the people away. There's an Alima class in London, actually. And one of the girls went there, she came out. And they banned her from that class. She's only 14.
Yes.
What does she know?
Absolutely. I think that's really right. I was speaking to an imam just last week, and he was saying that he teaches young Muslim children, not children. They're probably about 19, 20, 21, 22. They're becoming huffaz and ulama.
Yeah.
And he said that one or two of them came up to me and said, "Look, I have these feelings for men." And he heard them, he listened to them, and he didn't rebuke them, he didn't judge them. He just said, "Look, you know that from our perspective as Muslims, it's a sin to engage beyond the thought." And they said, "Look, we have no intention to go beyond the boundaries of the Sharia on this issue, but I want you to know this is how we feel. But I'm not going to do anything." And the Imam was saying to him, "Look, we will help you to strengthen your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're in that difficulty, really the most important relationship is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you, like in that example, if you try and sever that relationship by saying, 'Don't come back to our masjid,' or 'Don't come back to my class,' then you are actually aiding those people to recognize an action that can be corrected to become a label that will throw them into the hands of people who will make that a permanent thing." And so I think really that's very important that we as a community need to change our perspective of these issues so that our children can come to us as parents, but have, as you said, safe spaces in our community where our children can raise these issues. Absolutely.
And it's not accepting. People think, oh, somehow that we're accepting of it. No, it's not.
No.
It's not that we're saying it's permissible or any of these things or it's okay.
Yeah.
We have our position on it Islamically, but you need to be able to help people deal with it. If someone's got an alcohol problem or someone's a drug addict, okay, you're never going to say that drinking or having drugs is correct, but they need help in that moment. And we've got to be mature, and we've got to be equipped, and we've got to be empowered to deal with this. And we've got to know what our shortcomings are. And, may Allah really bless you for the work that you're doing, bro. It's so important that, helping the families in what they're doing. They need to come more, and you need to think about who else is going to be able to do this stuff, empowering and uplifting other people. Because parents worry, man. You always worry about your children. And it's never real until it hits home, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think these are the things we've really got to think about how we're going to do and tackle them. And because, I mean, like you're saying, bro, we think our kids don't know anything or they're still babies. They have access to a lot more information than we did at their age.
Yeah.
And they have communities in which they can talk, and we don't even know the language of children anymore, as hip as we think we are.
Let me ask you a question. I was hearing this. I was in this discussion, or I was hearing discussion taking place on a WhatsApp group where someone was saying that, look, what we need to do is help our young people to not commit zina by enabling environments where they can do it we can have relationships in a halal way. So his proposal was this, and I was a bit shocked. And I don't know, maybe I don't know how you feel, but he's saying that, look, what we need to do is enable children to young people to have nikah, and then basically go out on dates with somebody, and they still live in their family home, and if they're not compatible, then they break off, they annul that marriage before it's consummated, and so that's what we need to encourage. And I was thinking, is that really what we need to encourage? Is that really the solution? And this is actually a serious discussion that's taking place around ways in which you can stop young people from committing zina. I think, what about just encouraging marriage? Per
Wait,
se?
so how
that
is
is
that going to
marriage,
stop
isn't it?
nikah?
But that's marriage with the intention that you're not gonna go through with it in the long term. You're potentially it's like
That's
it
like
could potentially be a
muta,
muta.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
it could potentially
That's
be a
like
muta.
clear-cut
And
haram
so I'm
by
thinking,
consensus.
are we actually facilitating haram under the guise of halal?
No, agreed, Yusuf. But I think the situations are a lot wider than that, bro. And this comes back to this point about gender roles, responsibility. You know, like the markers of masculinity, being responsible.
Yeah.
What does it mean for a man today to be qawamu? What does it mean for him to be responsible for his wife, and Allah has made him a degree higher in responsibility, etc., etc.? How do we understand that today? Because the reality is, when you look at sisters, they work right outside the house, they work inside the house, they do everything to do with the house, they raise the children, and guys generally are not on that level at the same age. You know, I'm not saying that guys are waste, but it's not that. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of hardworking brothers out there who are out working day and night to support their family, right? But if you look generally at the same age, if you were to take the average guy who's 25 and the average sister who's 25, and you'll find generally the sister at 25 has achieved more. And I know there's things about, okay, you guys mature later, etc. So now if you're pushing your daughters at a younger age to get married, who are they going to marry? Are they going to marry someone of the same age? Are they going to marry someone older? Is this person going to treat it, you know, that sort of try before you buy
So the question
attitude?
is, why are our young men growing up and not embracing responsibility, or being children until they're like 25 or 30?
Because we haven't had it hard, mate.
Because what about it? Sometimes we, if you think about how we grew up, and we were allowed almost to live our own life, and we found out we made some mistakes, and we learned from them, and I think we mollycoddle our children too much, and I think we don't. Almost, there's some families I know. I remember speaking to my wife about this. She said there was her friend's brother. He was never allowed to even lift his hand to do any chores in the household. Yeah, even his sister would actually pour the cornflakes and the milk for him in the morning, because he was not allowed to do anything other than that. Yeah?
Smashed it.
And he wouldn't wash a dish. He wouldn't wash her clothes. He wouldn't do anything. So what do we expect when we don't?
But did they think that was the role of a man? Did he think him having those qualities was him behaving manly?
Probably, yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. The idea of what it means to be a man.
What do you mean, getting a woman
So
to do...
a man washing dishes is not manly, as though the Messenger of Allah didn't ever do. We know he did household chores.
Agree, Yusuf, but I think brothers have also taken it to the other extreme. They always say, "Oh, it's a sunnah to like do housework," and like, yeah, bruv, that's the only sunnah you do though.
but I think what we need to do is we need to like, this idea, this saying that's not like man up. Yeah, we need to get our young men
man
to
up and buy a robot.
We need them to recognize that in the Muslim world where there's much more difficulty, they grow up earlier, because they have to face difficulty. And our young people, they live a life of luxury. Everything's done for them, and there's no sense of responsibility.
How much of that is actual, the case, and how much of that is just us being kind of grumpy?
No, I still see a lot of that. I think
back in my day, I used to play with a piece of
we live
wood.
we live in a
Salman.
but we live in a rights-based society where people are always talking about their rights. Yeah, my rights. This is my right. This is my right. But not responsibility. And actually, in terms of the Sharia, in terms of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's our responsibilities that will be accountable for, not our rights.
So
and
teach kids about their responsibilities at a young age.
Absolutely. And give them responsibility. For a child not to even do anything, like the mother almost serves hand and foot a child as though she's the slave of the child. Yeah. The child, look, get up and wash your dishes. Yeah. Get up and don't throw your clothes on the floor. Put it in the washing machine. Yeah. This is how you use a washing machine.
Hey man, sheesh, sound like my wife.
I know this is revolutionary.
Honestly, bro.
This is revolutionary. This is revolutionary. But
I told you I'd put those shelves up, man. No need to remind me every 6 months.
I promised my wife I'd say this. Yeah. But I think really we need to think about the way we're raising our children, because I think
Yusuf, this is
because we're raising
massive issue, bro. I mean, look, I do stuff in Islamic finance, right? And working in the city, and I when we talk about the impact of riba, and we talk about all of these things on house prices and all that, I see actually, because what my father could afford, with, a stay-at-home wife and raise all the children and support families back home and support people in hardship over here. And they would have people who would come over and stay, and you'd let them, stay in one of the rooms. They done it, man. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
They had sabr, they had hilm, and they could do it because the way of the world was that you could afford it. Now you can't, So all it's doing is ripping the family apart. That the wife has to work if you want anything. Either they're both working, right? And then you have less time for your children. Or the other thing is you want to have less children so you can give them a better quality of life.
Fewer.
This is what I hear all the time. Yeah, fewer children. So you can have, give them a better
Grammar
quality of
police,
life.
yeah.
Yeah, innit?
Islam 20 editor here.
Right? So you have fewer children so you can give them a better quality of life. And it's all messed up. It's honestly throwing things out. Husband and wife become, kind of disenfranchised with the marriage. They become tired. Wife doesn't have time, to do.
But is that
things in the
really
house.
to survive?
No, it's
or
not.
is
It's
that
not.
to kind
It's
of-
because we
No,
have
but
a.
what's the flip side, Salman? This is it. You see, what's looked at is, well, look, if you live a life where you're socially dependent
Yeah.
in a welfare state, then you're all right. But that's not the answer either.
No, but the thing is, what are you trying to reach a higher quality of life, and giving the impression that is just surviving, because reality is that what do we want? I want this massive house. I want this really good car, and
So then you need to both be working then.
but what about the person who's on their deathbed, and thinking about the regrets in his life? I doubt if he's gonna regret. I didn't get a better car. I didn't have a better job. I didn't spend
Jay,
time.
look, let's talk numbers, man. Let's just talk numbers straight up, yeah?
Yeah.
If you're on 40k salary, which is a good salary, yeah? In London, that leaves you with about 2,400, 2,500 a month. If you're raising your family, you're going to be paying rent, yeah? At least 1,100, right? So that's 1,100 now, and you're going to do everything out of that. You're paying, if you send them to an Islamic school or whatever, all of your travel, the kids, all of their needs.
Yep.
You want to pay for a car, pay for insurance, pay for petrol.
Yep.
How is that going to happen? It's not even luxuries.
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is moving further out from London.
And then paying more to come in, and then everything that they have in London.
Oh, do you know? I think.
No, but these
I
are
think.
the questions we've gotta ask ourselves.
Sometimes our choices we see them as binary choices. Yeah. That it's either I have a good quality of life for my children or I starve. Actually, isn't there? Sometimes relative all of our lives. We probably spend more money than we need to. Yeah. We spend on things that we could cut back on. Yeah. And we should, I think it's about doing more with less. The reality is that our rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our sometimes it's the barakah in your money that's more important than the amount of money.
We have to make a choice. Like, what do we value more, this or that?
Because I see a lot of people whose children are grown up, and they don't say, I really regret not spending those extra time at work, or I really getting that. They say, look, I really regret not having spent time with my children. So now my children, my young adult children are almost strangers to me because I haven't spent any time with them. I haven't raised them. My children I never gave them the tarbiyah that they deserved.
Yeah.
And so sometimes
some people they feel that the way they show love to the kids is just by putting in the
and
overtime.
absolutely that's right. And actually that's what we say. The reality is that children need things that we think children need things different to what we think they need. They need time. They need the love that we give. They need the affirmation that we give, the validation. We talk about the 3 A's in the presentation: affection, affirmation, and attention. If we give these 3 things to children, because puts them in a good state of feeling of security.
All right, guys, we need to pray Maghrib. We're gonna get late, so. We could go on for ages, but that was I think that's a good place to stop. Carry on the discussion another time.
Inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, Yusuf, Umer. Thank you, those watching at home. If you liked it, give it a like or a share.
I think also just to add, they always have this after these programs, right? And saying,
a big
if
hug.
you've heard anything on this program that you think affects you, honestly, reach out to people.
Give Salman's mobile number, please.
Give Salman.
07. Sorry.
Reach out to Yusuf. Reach out to people who know. Go out to people you trust, and have these conversations in safe places. There's a lot of different topics that we've discussed, and it's important that if you're not sure how to deal with it, go to people who do know And Yusuf SRE, again, mashallah, may Allah bless him for all the work that he's doing,
Ameen,
every
summa
week
ameen.
up and down, traveling the country to teach people. And
Yeah.
he's made time again for us
No,
today.
actually, I'm just going to see parts of the country I've never been to.
Looking for a new house in it.
Yeah, yeah, Bradford, here I come.
You don't know, bro.
Say hi
On
to
that
Jenny.
note,
That's not how to speak in Bradford, bro. I'll defend my brothers in Bradford.
Say hi to Jenny and
yeah,
Bradford.
exactly.
Astaghfirullah.
Alright.
Okay, yeah, on that note, Jazakumullah khairan. If you like the podcast, give it a like and a share and a comment.
What happens if you don't like the
And,
podcast?
If you don't like the podcast,
Share
then
it
I'll
and tell
give you
people to stay away from it.
I'll write Yusuf's email address in the comments so you can tell him what you think. Yeah, to listen to previous episodes, go to islam21c.com/unscripted. And that's it from us. Jazakumullah
Until
khairan.
next time.
Barakallahu feek.
Salam wa rahmatullah.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت ونستغفرك ونتوب اليك